Hey everyone, welcome to Princess Gay. I'm your host Connie, and today we are finishing off the Firefly trilogy with Three from Hell. This is the final movie in this trilogy. Presumably, there's not going to be any more because of the passing of one of the lead actors. Um, so I presume they're not like gonna do anything new with that. Also, this came out like in 2019, I want to say, and it had been years and years since the second one came out. So obviously, all the actors are notably older than they were in the second one. Um, I otherwise don't really know anything about this. I just know that the three from Hell are our main three, um, whose names I cannot remember for the life of me right now. I don't know why. It's like I actually don't think I had an issue remembering their names before, but now I am. But yeah, at the end of the last one, they were getting into a shootout with police. Everything was going haywire and crazy, but it kind of just faded without letting us know their fate. And obviously, I believe I mentioned this back then when I reacted to that since we know there's a third one, we know they survive. Um, but at the time when that was first released, people didn't know that. They didn't know if there was going to be a third, unless Rob Zombie said that he planned on making a third. But they probably didn't know. So they just saw it as like, oh yeah, that seems pretty finite, even though it doesn't like explicitly say so. They probably died. But we know now that that is not the case. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see where this closes out. What are we going to do? How is the violence and everything going to be compared to the first two? All of that jazz. Like, what new characters are going to be introduced? Is Tio Danny going to be back? Because that would be pretty great. um, because I still stand by that. I believe the first one was actually more gory and everything than the second. Um, the second one was good and definitely was better for the story and general entertainment factor. But I actually feel like the gruesomeness of it was toned down. In instead focusing more on the character stuff, focusing more on story, focusing more on just making it a little more interesting and entertaining by having the entire kind of Western style car chase kind of situation going on. I know those are two different things, but you know what I mean. If you haven't seen my reactions to the previous two, I would definitely suggest so. Um, I have seen both of those movies, and I think it'll help fuel my reaction for this one. So I would definitely suggest checking those out first if you haven't seen them. But yeah, I'm excited to get into this. My mind is a little foggy right now. Clearly, I can't remember anyone's names. uh, yeah, I can't think of it for the life of me. It's like I know the one dude is a clown who likes fried chicken, but I can't think of his name. And I can't think of the girl's name or the other guy either. And I can't think of the actors except for Sherry Moon Zombie. And that's only easy to remember because she's Rob Zombie's wife, and she has a pretty unique name, if we're being honest. Um, but yeah, I think this is also the last film role for the one actor who plays the clown, because he did pass away. I think this was his last film role before he did. So it's gonna be it's gonna be interesting to see how his last role goes, and I know I've seen like some interviews from the years before he passed, and he got pretty old pretty quick. I feel it's like I feel like he's gonna feel a little different in this movie, considering it came out so long after the second one. I feel like he's going to feel notably older. And because of the long time between the movies as well, I feel like they also have to have it within the movie's canon a good amount of time having passed. So whether the Firefly family were captured or excuse me, or escaped, um, they are definitely a lot older. They have to be portrayed as such because of the actors. Unless they just do what they did in the last movie and just ignore the fact that the one dude has a beard now and just have it set directly after the last one. Because that's what the last movie did. That's what the second movie did. It basically took place right after the first one, and yet the one dude had a beard despite not having it in the first movie, and they never touched on it. It was just never pointed out or anything. It just was. He just had a beard now. I don't know. Anyways, we're just gonna get this going. So when the screen fades to black, pause this redirect and go to the description below. Follow the link to the reaction, and after you watch it, come back here to the redirect and resume play. Because after it fades to black, then fades back in, everything from that point forward will be my afterthoughts and will contain spoilers to the movie. So, that being said, thank you so much for tuning in, and I will see you at the reaction. And we are back, and we'll begin with spoilers in 3, 2, 1, now. So I looked it up, and apparently Barry Bostwick is the narrator. And I think the narrator's only heard at, like, the very beginning, where, like, explaining everything that had happened with the Firefly family after their arrest and all, after their, being shot up, like, 20 times each and being hospitalized and then arrested. I believe, so he has a very, very bit role. But he's credited nonetheless. Probably because he is still a notable name, and for what I read when looking things up, Rob Zombie wanted him in it because Rob Zombie's just a really big fan of Rocky Horror Picture Show, and so, yeah. Which, fair enough. So, yeah, he wasn't in the movie, like, visibly. And that's, I think, what confused me. But I would say this is the weakest of the trilogy. And I would say that it's not even really that close. I'm not seeing anything here about if there's going to be, like, another one. Let me see if I can find something. Because the ending is so open, and it just feels like it's kind of eh. I don't like the way it ended. I'm not seeing anything that says, like, I saw, like, there's an article that was, like, saying someone's opinion on saying they shouldn't. But, yeah. So this movie disappointed me in quite a few ways. Like, there was a lot of the same fun stuff that we come to expect, but there were some things that really disappointed me. So, and I'm not even necessarily blaming anyone for one of them. So the one I'm not blaming anyone for, the one that's not really anyone's fault, and I have, it's just because of circumstance and all. Basically replacing Captain Spaulding with Foxy did not work. But I'm not blaming anyone for that because apparently Sid Haig got ill, like right before filming was to start. And so Rob Zombie, because, Sid Haig couldn't properly reprise his role to the best of his ability anymore at that point, he had to basically rewrite a lot of the script in order to create the character of Foxy and fit him in to basically replace Captain Spaulding as the third member of the Three from Hell. And it's not anyone's fault. I don't blame Sid Haig, obviously. I don't blame Rob Zombie. I don't blame anyone for that. I don't blame Richard Brake, I believe is the name of the actor who played Foxy. I could look that up right now. I basically still have that up. Just want to make sure. Richard Brake, yeah. I don't blame him and everything. It's just, it didn't work. Foxy coming out of nowhere as this, like, just random ass character who has no previous setup or anything, it doesn't really work. And also, personality wise, he's really not that different from Otis. He's boring, honestly. He's a random, just last minute character who just doesn't work. And again, I don't entirely blame anyone for that. But it didn't work, and it did bring down the movie. And again, kind of going within that same realm, Captain Spaulding not being in most of the movie also brought it down. I mentioned how in the first movie that was one of its big weaknesses, that Captain Spaulding, who was the most interesting, fun character, was barely in it. And that was one of the biggest things that made the second movie so much better, because he had so much bigger of a role and was allowed to shine and helped bring the movie's tone and style to a more consistent point. And in this one, it's just, without him there, it does hurt the overall quality of the film. It's like, let's be honest, he was the star of the three of them. Between him, Bill Moseley as Otis and Sherry Moon Zombie as Baby, it's like he was the star. He was the one who really shined. The other two are great, but Sid Haig just was something special in these movies. So having him be so cut back does hurt. And again, it's not his fault. It's not Rob Zombie's fault. It's not anyone's fault. He got sick. You can't blame anyone for that. And he eventually passed away after the fact, and it sucks. And again, it's no one's fault. It's just bad circumstance. However, I feel like the movie should, and the filming and everything should have been pushed back a little, because I feel it's pretty clear that a lot of this was kind of made up on the spot. It very much comes across as like, yeah, this was definitely rewritten really quickly before filming. It was definitely spur of the moment rewrites that just don't really work. Because the movie doesn't really have a proper thorough line. It's just a few unrelated events, basically, connecting. Mostly two. You have the first half of the movie, which centers around Baby's escape. Otis has already escaped. He's already gotten out of this all. And now it's centering around getting Baby out. And you have the warden. You have everything surrounding the prison and all. And then after the warden, his wife and his friend and his friend's wife are killed, it just completely abandons everything with that. There's no more police chases. There's no more hunting them down. That's just done. It just goes into a completely different movie, basically. They go to Mexico, and it turns into something completely different. You suddenly have Tio Danny's character, Rondo, having a kid who wants revenge for his death. And so it kind of changes up the entire tone and style, and it's just it honestly, this one really feels like a western. The second half of this movie felt like a western. The first half felt like more like a crime drama. They felt like two completely different movies just forced into one, and it just did not work. It was such a shift that it just felt entirely out of place. It like none of the characters in the second half had proper build up because they're only in the second half of the movie. They're just characters who are just suddenly introduced. Some of them end up helping the Firefly family, some of them don't. They all die, except for the Firefly family. Everyone else there dies. And it's just like, okay, why? Like the only ones I actually like care about, like the only ones whose deaths I actually cared about were the girls, the sex workers. And it's because they were entirely innocent in all of this. Like, yeah, you could say the one dude who helps them out in the end is innocent too, helps the Firefly family out. But let's be honest, he is helping with this massacre and everything, and it's like, honestly, again, he felt like a character who you're supposed to really like and root for, but because he had so little build up and actual depth to him because of the time, I didn't. The girls were the only ones who I felt were really completely innocent and completely like felt wrong for them to die the way they did. You have the two girls who Otis slept with who are just gunned down in the bed just unceremoniously. And then you have the other girl that slept with Foxy. And yeah, she gets a little sassy and everything with the one dude. But he had absolutely zero reason to shoot her. There was no reason for him to do that. And it's like, it just feels so disjointed, I guess is the best way to put it. There's also some like secondary character plots that just go literally nowhere. Like it introduces partway through that Baby is struggling with her father with Captain Spaulding's death. It never does anything with that again. It just brings it up once and it's like, oh yeah, we're not going to touch on this character thing that could actually be really fascinating. No, we're just going to move past it and ignore it for the rest of the movie. Despite that would actually make things a lot more interesting and entertaining and better. And again, I know a lot of rewrites had to be done, but there's just a point where it's like, you probably should have just delayed the movie at this point if it was this hard to rewrite and make sense and work. I'm sorry if I seem a little harsh on this, because again, there was a lot to enjoy about the movie. There was a lot of fun to the movie and everything. It was still entertaining. It wasn't like bad, but it's definitely the weakest of these three. And it just felt disjointed. It didn't have as much entertainment value. It didn't have as much consistency with its style and tone. I couldn't get into it as much. And again, it's nothing against Richard Brake. He did a fine job, but I did not even slightly get attached to Foxy as a character. He felt he the entire time felt like he was just thrown in to replace Captain Spaulding. He never came across as his own character. He never felt like his own character. He felt like a replacement for Captain Spaulding, and not even a good one. And that really sucks. Because, again, I'm not blaming the actor. I'm blaming more so the fact that the circumstances that caused this to happen. It's not any actor's fault. It's not Rob Zombie's fault. It's just really terrible circumstances and coincidence, really. There were other characters in this who had, like, roles to play that just kind of really didn't feel like that was going to go anywhere. Like, the entire thing with the one guard, Greta, it's like, okay, what was the point of that? It, like, maybe, it played at one point with the idea that maybe she was interested in Baby, like, sexually. But it's another thing they just never do anything with. Wouldn't it have been a little more interesting if maybe she had ended up, like, developing a sexual interest in Baby and, like, tried to do something with her and that caused her death instead of just being unceremoniously strangled? It's like, it just feels like there were so many better choices they could have made with some of these characters. A lot of them just felt like just kind of hand waved off in the end. I couldn't get into a lot of it. I really just couldn't. And I just I feel like going to Mexico wouldn't even work. I feel like the American police would probably get in contact with the Mexican police, the Mexican authorities, and they would probably work together to capture them, return them over the border, and get them arrested. Yet it's never implied that anything like that would even happen. Because, again, the fact that these three are being chased and hunted after is just basically abandoned. It's abandoned as a concept. And just is never brought back up again. After everyone in this town is dead, they just survive. They just win. And I'm not saying that they have to lose for this to be a satisfying ending, but there's no resolution. Like, there's just none. One way or the other. There is nothing. Even if there was, like, some kind of, like, news report that played that you heard, even just auditorily, even if you didn't want to show it, that just said, like, oh, they're still on the loose, authorities are still hunting for them. If they had just put that in there at the end, would have solved the entire issue. But the problem is, no, we just have to assume that they're just free. They're free. They're free, probably always will be. Nothing will change. No, nothing will change. It's not a conclusive ending. It's not an ending. It just leaves so many questions. And the only way this could work is if there's another. The only way this could work is if there ends up being another movie. But I don't know that they're going to do another. And honestly, I'm kind of leaning towards the idea that they won't. Between the fact that Sid Haig has passed away, and I don't know if they'd want to make another without him in some way involved. Adding to that with the fact that this is already a completed trilogy, they might not feel like the need to make any more. It's like, I don't think they're going to make a fourth. And that's disappointing because there's no conclusiveness to this. And some people might argue that's the point. They got away. They escaped in the end. It's like, okay, but why aren't the police chasing them anymore? Why is this manhunt just abandoned? Again, you only had to mention it with an auditory news report. That is all they had to do. That would have resolved literally everything, with the ending, mind you. Um, it just feels like there wasn't a lot thought out here, at least not enough. Maybe that's just me. Maybe it's just me that is bothered by that, but yeah. But yeah, this came out quite a while too after the last one. Like this came out in 2019, and to be fair, let me see here. Up, 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 I don't want the characters. I just want to know when Devil's Rejects came out. 2005. So there was a 14-year gap between the two movies. 14 years. Which is insane. Absolutely insane that there is that big of a gap. And yeah, that definitely is part of that's definitely part of why the third movie probably didn't do as well. The fact that it took that long to get done in the first place. If the movie had released even like a few years earlier, Sid Haig probably would have been in it. The rewrites wouldn't have had to happen. It probably would have been a lot more put together, well put together. But instead, we got kind of a mess of a movie. And again, I want to make it clear, it's not bad. There was a lot that was still just mindless entertainment, fun and goofiness. The kills were fairly entertaining. I don't feel they were as creative in this one. It's mostly just, oh, you get stabbed, you get your throat slit, you get shot. Yay. I still don't understand the clown, by the way. Let me see if let me look up the plot for Three from Hell, because maybe it'll tell. Da, 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 da. This says nothing about it here. This just mentions that they demand Harper, the warden, help baby sneak out of prison or they'll murder the hostages. And then it just goes to he follows their commands and does so. It doesn't mention anything about the clown here. Also, also, here's another thing that they kind of just dropped. Otis brought up that Baby was acting a little off, that she seemed weird, that she seemed like she was crazier than usual or whatnot. Foxy didn't seem to notice any difference, but Otis, like, I know her more than you do. I know something's wrong here. Never brought up again. Absolutely nothing is ever done with that. Absolutely nothing is ever done with it. It's another plot point that is just entirely dropped. Why? Wouldn't it have been interesting if you had like Baby like getting progressively crazier to the point of like even being too crazy for Otis and Foxy? Wouldn't that have been quite interesting? It's like there's just so many small plot points that they just ignore, that they just drop. And it's like, why? they would have made the movie so much better. And it might be due to the rewrites. It might be due to the rewrites. But still. It's just... It just feels so weakly put together, comparatively. And there's just various issues. It was fun to watch, and I'm glad I finished out the trilogy. And again, I wouldn't call it outright bad. I would say it's more just weak. If I were to give like a number rating, just to give you an example of where I would place it, I'd say honestly a 5 out of 10. Compare that to the first two. The first one would probably be like a, I don't know, a 7 out of 10. And the second one would be a 9 out of 10. That's how much weaker this one is comparatively. And that's just off the top of my head, by the way, also. So take that more or less with a grain of salt. But that's just a basic area that they would be in, off the top of my head. I just... I just feel this was so weak. I'm just disappointed. They had all these smaller plot points that they could have done so much good with. And again, it might just be due to the rewrites. The rewrites might have screwed everything over. And as I said, I don't blame anyone for those rewrites. They had to happen because Sid Haig's unfortunate illness took hold. It's like, I'm not blaming anyone for that, but it undoubtedly hurt the movie. I kind of wonder what this movie would have been like if Sid Haig had been able to fully reprise his role. And he was the third member of the Three from Hell from the beginning. What would this film have been like comparatively? I really do wonder. But yeah, I'm just not sure if if Rob Zombie ever plans to make a fourth one of these. I doubt it. I really don't think it's going to happen. But if he does, I just really hope that more time, not necessarily 14 years, but you know what I mean, more time is put into making sure the script is well put together enough to carry itself without feeling entirely disjointed. But we'll see. We'll see. I'm definitely interested to hear what you all think, so tell me in the comments below. Also, I think I just realized I never mentioned this was a donation reward for Sweet Venom. I think I never mentioned that in the pre-thoughts, so I apologize about that. But yeah, it is a dono reward for Sweet Venom, just like the first two were. And yeah. Like I said, tell me your thoughts down below. For now, I'm Connie, and I'm signing off. See y'all next time.